Welcome to the Rhode Island Waves Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Scott Nerney. We're here at the Coesit Inn on Tuesday night. Come down and see us. We'd love to have you. Stop by for dinner and drinks. There's a beautiful bar here at the Coesit Inn. They'd love to have you. The bartenders are fantastic. With me tonight is Pande from Skills RI, a state agency that helps people gain better employment, new employment, a whole lot we're going to talk about. And I'm thrilled to say that I was one of your students or attendees in the past. So this may be a little more conversational than typical, but I am so thrilled to have you here.
Scott, thank you. It is an absolute pleasure to be here with you at the Coesit Inn and having this conversation. So
Sure.
Thank you for thinking of us.
Yes, absolutely. So give us a little background of yourself.
Certainly. So I am the founding executive director at Skills for Rhode Island's Future. By way of education, I'm actually a clinical social worker by training, and did quite a bit of clinical work in Rhode Island. Started at the training school, so working with incarcerated youth, but then pivoted to the community, really trying to figure out what were some of the root causes of incarceration, what were some of the root causes for students who weren't excelling in their education, and ran a couple of community-based organizations. Nickerson Community Center, which is unfortunately now defunct, but one of the oldest settlement houses, and then ran another organization called Federal Hill House. And throughout my career, there was one through line that was always top of mind for me, and that was how to try to solve for the economic disparities that existed between kind of the have and have-nots, and how important earning a living is to the psyche of a family and of an individual. Being able to provide for family, being able to provide shelter for yourself and others, being able to be productive in society and community was always an important thing. So when I was given this opportunity to start Skills for Rhode Island's Future, it was really a culmination of a lot of what I had seen over my career and really be able to create economic opportunities for every Rhode Islander. I strongly believe that everyone has a purpose in our workforce. Everyone should have the right to a livable wage, and we should make it a priority to make sure that we're investing in ourselves, to upskill, reskill people, to make sure that every Rhode Islander continue their career journey and get to that middle class job.
So I think it's important that the points you hit on were outstanding. You said reskill and upskill are two of the factors that, can you kind of explain those to some of the people who are thinking, I need a better job, I need a different job, how that relationship applies to those two words?
Yeah, what I found, and what we continue to find, right? So what I love about the work that I do, it's an ever-evolving process, and we're constantly learning. The pandemic has shifted us into another learning environment.
Absolutely.
But what I have found most consistent is that a lot of our systems that lay the foundation for who we become later in life, so let's say public education system, what they teach is really valuable from a foundational skills perspective. But what they're not able to do is keep pace with the ever-changing environment in our workforce, right? So digital transformation is happening at such a rapid rate, and yet the kids that are graduating from high school may not fully understand what does that translate into my professional skills. And so a lot of what we focus on is that upskilling and reskilling so that we can align what employers need for skill sets and bring that back down. So we have what's called a demand-driven approach. So we start with our employer partners. What are the top in-demand skills to be employed? Again, we look at growth in job opportunities, career pathways. What are the skills that you need to be successful in a career? And then we reverse engineer training opportunities to make sure that we're preparing folks for those jobs. We historically have had what's called a train and pray model, right? Where we just train people and pray they get a job.
Exactly.
This way we're much more intentional about our practice, right? So we start with the job in mind and really map out strategically and say, okay, I need critical thinking skills or project management skills or some of those what we call essential work skills that are often not taught in our system of education. And we really focus on building that next tier of foundational level skills for everybody. And then we'll differentiate based on what their career interests are.
So not to put words in your mouth or say what you would do in the future, but so for example, wind power is a big thing in Rhode Island. We're one of the leaders in the country. It helps that we have a lot of wind offshore. We have this big, huge ocean to put windmills in and showcase what the future could be. And obviously, some of them will be sold out in the heartland and all over the world. So you would look at those potential employers as they're coming in to say, what are you going to need 6 months, 6 years from now? And then build your programs to compensate for what the whole might be.
You got it, and you can put those words in my mouth because we are working with the offshore wind industry.
Okay.
We've been working with some UK-based companies that have set up headquarters here in Rhode Island in anticipation of the construction of our offshore wind, and then also looking at maintenance technicians. And so we've been forecasting not only what jobs are needed in the offshore wind industry itself, but the secondary and tertiary jobs as a result of this new economic sector that we're building here in Rhode Island, right? So if you just think about it, and if you go on this journey with me, Scott, so great that we're going to build these magnificent wind turbines out in the ocean. But there's actual vessels, kind of like ships that live out at sea, that house the crew that are working on these. So with that's going to come additional support for, let's say, catering services. But catering services that would work for, like, again, a cruise ship type environment. So we've got to retool that. What better place in Rhode Island than to provide those food services and catering services? You're going to have supply chain and logistic matters that need to come out here. So looking at warehousing, looking at dock space, and who's going to work on land versus off land. Transfer vessels, so even what water traffic looks like and how those patterns play into it. So not only just the art of anticipation of jobs of actually construction of windmill in the ocean and the maintenance of it, but all of the residual economic development that could happen as a result of it. And we want to make sure that Rhode Island is poised to have the talent for all of that to help build the local economy around renewable energies.
So a person who may be doing job X and looks at something like that, that's a field I want to get into, whether it's someone already employed, someone just finishing up high school, or someone who's recently lost a job. Those types of forward-thinking analysis that you're doing will help them be profitable and wanted in the near future. It's not just, as you said, getting a role and hope that job is there or having to move away. We really want to, your organization is really trying to tool Americans in Rhode Island to work those jobs instead of having to import people from all over the country. And through that, I would expect that you're going to raise the average wages that we're going to have, because these are great paying jobs in many sectors.
That is correct, and they don't all require an advanced degree.
Sure.
So we're making sure that as we're looking at jobs, again, it's jobs for all Rhode Islanders. And you might be interested or intrigued by renewable energies, right? It's such a hot topic issue right now with climate change. We're in the middle of a heat wave, all of those things. And so there's a lot of social awareness around renewable energies, and so it might sound like a fascinating career for some. We're even working with a VR company to develop virtual reality to transport people to what it's like to work hundreds of feet in the air or to be out on the sea for long periods of time. What does seasickness look like, right? So I learned, Scott, that you don't want me putting in wind turbines or fixing wind turbines, because I will likely fall over the ocean floor, because I thought I'm good with heights. I love to fly. I have no problem being in an airplane. But when you're out on the open ocean and you're standing there hundreds of feet in the air and you're looking around and you see nothing and nobody, it can be intimidating.
Sure.
So what we're hoping to do is bring that reality and that realization. But if I'm somebody who still loves renewable energy and wants to contribute to that industry sector, we'll also share with you all the other jobs that are available. So you may not be that installer or that technician, but how can you work on the logistics or the land side of what's going to be critical? Laying cables. How are we going to bring that energy from the ocean floor into our homes, right? There's so much of that needs to happen. So we try to share with people what are those career opportunities within a sector so that everybody can find their space.
And the program that I went through Um, when I was unemployed or retired from corporate life, it wasn't focused on just one industry. It was focused with the idea that there's other programs out there. There's call center jobs, there's financial analysis jobs, there's project manager, there's machine shop operators who are just gobbling up people that come out of your program because they've got a skill set, and I know you do a lot of what I would call, I guess, paid internships, but I wouldn't really put it that way. People really working in a company in the job that they hopefully will get when they're done with their time there to learn and make sure, to your example of the VR, this is a job I can see myself doing, I'm comfortable with it, and I want to show that I add value to the company. And vice versa for the company to say, this is a person, Nina, that you brought to me with some additional skills, with um, some feeling that they're going to add value and confidence that I want to hire them.
Absolutely. So I need to bring you in as our spokesperson
Yeah.
to be able to sell our services. But that's exactly what we try to do. Is we try to help people go through their journey to envision what their career can look like, right? So we are a nonprofit. We focus a lot of our energy on people who are unemployed or underemployed. And we want to make sure that they know about the world of opportunity, right? I think all the time we go through life thinking, I know I want to be this. This is what I know. I've worked at this job for 20 years. And then boom, all of a sudden you're out of a job.
Right.
What do you do? Where do you go? There's nothing more frightening, right? To say, well, I've done this for 20 years. It's scary to say, I'm forced to change, or now I need to use a computer. I use teachers as an example when the pandemic hit. They had a few short weeks to figure out how to retool their teaching,
Yeah.
right? How frightening is that? Think about that for a moment. I'm used to teaching in front of a board, in front of a classroom, live audience, and all of a sudden my entire practice has shifted. That is the way so many people who lose their jobs, companies have downsized, or they no longer have the requisite skills, right? Because again, we talked a little bit about digital transformation, really upending the workplace. So jobs that might have existed 10 years ago or 15 years ago are now obsolete. And what do you do? So we want people to open, expand their minds to possibilities, but then also be honest with them. Do you have the skill sets? Do you have the strengths to be successful in these new careers, and try out a few of them? So going back to your paid example, we have paid training programs that align with those industries where you can try and get a little money while you're going through a training program. We do have internships, paid internships for high school students, for first generation college students, and we continuously advocate at the state level for adult internship programs because I don't know, have I found my calling, right? Do I know what I want to do after this? So I think there's always an opportunity for people to learn.
I think having touched a lot of the folks in your organization, some of the things that I found were just the scariest thing in the world for some of the folks that were in the program is I have to do a job interview. Well, I interviewed with a couple of people at my company that I knew really well and I had lunch with. But now it's someone that you don't know.
Right.
And let alone if it's video, some people think that's great, some people think it's horrible. That's a different animal where you can't really express yourself that well because you're only seeing right here. And the skill set that you guys give to ask those interview questions of, well, tell me about yourself. One of the most horrible questions to ask, but it's going to come up. Or why did you leave your last job? Or what would your employer say about you? Have you had bad situations at work? Because those are fair questions, and you can't have a rehearsed speech for that, but you have to be able to throw it from the heart. And the resume writing, there are so many things that your organization does that really helps the person gain confidence and be prepared for the next step they're going to do.
Absolutely. So the program, Ready, Set, Work is the name of the program, right? And we also start with your strengths. I feel like for us, that was such an important part when we designed the Ready, Set, Work program. So often we focus on what we can't do or the deficits, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so again, as you're going through this journey of being unemployed or underemployed and trying to figure out how do I get started, right? For instance, you mentioned resume writing. We've had some folks come in who hadn't written a resume ever because they had started their job fresh out of high school and had worked there for 20 years, and they find themselves now in their 40s out of a job and the first time having to write a resume. Or we have folks who are coming back into the workforce after taking a period of time off, whether it was for family personal matters, or whether it was medical matters, or whether it was societal situations. How do you explain a 10-year gap in your employment history? So those are the things, and we want to make sure that people feel comfortable talking about it, so that when you're in the moment doing that interview, it does come off naturally. I think you're right. And we believe in that power of practice. Let's put you in those simulated situations so that you're not caught off guard. Nobody likes those gotcha moments, right?
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think it's a big help to people, especially as if you were to put a group of folks together like you do, there's all different levels of people in that classroom. And someone who may have been a director or a vice president at a company that worked their way up versus someone who's had menial jobs and had just said, you know what, I think I'm more than this.
Mm-hmm.
Those people will learn from each other.
That peer learning is so powerful. And the example that you gave is having an executive in a room with somebody who might have worked an hourly job at your local corner store be valued the same. And that's why we start with strengths. When we bring in our program partners from Leadership Rhode Island or Advancing Workplace Excellence or any of the other training partners that we work with, we wanted to use something that was going to level set the playing field, right? Again, instead of people comparing themselves against each other, which could actually become a psychological barrier, and they question whether or not they belong in a program, right? We talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion a lot. We focus on the belonging quite a bit, right? So that everybody sees themselves valued and that there is an opportunity for everybody. That learning is so critically important that happens, and I'm so glad that you're able to witness it and recognize the value of that, right? And I think by the end of the class, there's just such energy of togetherness, right, that didn't exist when you start the program.
Yeah, when I left, there were multiple people that linked me on LinkedIn and said, I want to follow you, I want to know what's going on, reach out to somebody. And I think you don't build that in just a regular classroom.
You don't. And all of that happens, that magic happens in 1 week,
Yes.
in 40 hours. And in your case, it was over Zoom, which is even harder to create those personal connections, right? It's easy to do this when you're face to face, but to create that in a Zoom environment, I would like to say we're proud of our program, and we are, but we're proud of the people who choose to participate, because that's the real richness is, right? That camaraderie, that support, it's just pure gold. And I wish we could bottle up the energy in those classes and just see how great everybody is and the worth that everybody brings to the table.
And Friday at 4 o'clock, the proverbial end of everything, and everybody's clapping, it doesn't end there.
It does not. It's just the beginning.
Talk a little bit about the follow-ups that your group does to try to keep tabs on people and make sure that if they have questions or...
Absolutely. So for Ready, Set, Work, I always say that's the beginning of your journey with skills, because then you get connected to one of our recruiters, or you continue to develop your skill with one of our career coaches to really refine what you want to do. And we work with you until we can find the job that makes sense for you and one of our employer partners. We represent over 200 employer partners in the state, and we're very particular about who we work with as well. We want civically minded, socially engaged companies who understand that people have had hiccups and bumps along the road. And just because somebody's been unemployed does not mean that they don't, again, have that value in work, right? A lot of times we're quick in society to cast dispersions and say, oh, well, they must be lazy, that's why they're unemployed, right? We don't take the time anymore to learn people for people. I say this often, I'm going to digress here for a moment. We've talked about digital transformation, which is great for some workplace efficiencies, but in human resources, I feel sometimes technology has removed the human aspect of human resources.
Sure.
And so you don't get to know people anymore. What I love about the work that we do, our recruiters still want to get to know you. They still want to get to know what makes you tick, what makes you excited, and we don't look at what your past history is. We look forward. We want to make sure whatever might have happened in the past happened in the past for whatever reason. And 99 times out of 100, it's all for great reasons, right? So how do we work with you to explain it, and how do we get you back on a path to success?
And you talk about some of your business partners, and people may be watching this thinking, wow, 200 companies, they take anyone. I was on the Secretary of State's website the other day, and there are over 70,000 businesses in Rhode Island.
That is
So to
right.
say, I'm only taking 200, tell us some of the names that you place people with or you work with, and we're saying, we need people with certain skills, help us find them and train them to where they're going to walk in day one and be successful.
Yeah, so when we onboard employer partners, and I'm happy to share kind of who we work with, but just to share more importantly, we try to make sure that our employer portfolio represents pretty much every industry, because we know every Rhode Islander is going to come in with a different interest.
Sure.
So from manufacturers to food services to banking and finance to public service sectors to nonprofit and education, we really try to have a vast portfolio. But then within that, we look for employer partners again who are open to hiring folks who might not have a traditional path of getting there, right? Who are going to be innovative with us in developing training programs or training pathways, open to career pathways for individuals, and that also are going to pay a livable wage job. We really try to strive. Now $15 an hour is kind of the common language. I think the inflation, all of the economic conditions that we're experiencing has really forced salaries to go up, the pandemic and all of that stuff. But even before the pandemic, we were always looking for employers who want to invest in their employees. And we represent large, mid, and small size companies because we find value in all of them. So we could represent your local restaurant who might be a mom and pop restaurant who's doing really great stuff, who just needs that extra support, who may not have a sophisticated HR department, but really wants to hire local people. We'll work with them. Then we'll work with your big companies like your Bank of Americas, your Citizens Bank, your Amicas and Fidelities of the world as well. And the reason why they're important is because they hire at all levels. And so when we go into a company that's a larger company, we look at the types of jobs, we look at the entry points so that we can get jobs where people who may have a high school diploma can still get a job and work. And we understand what those skill sets are. And again, we prep people for those interviews and prep them for those skill sets, all the way on up to somebody who might be unemployed with a master's level degree and wants to get into one of these companies. And so we really work within a company. We do the land and expand, right? So we land the account and then we expand across multiple departments, multiple divisions to ensure, again, there's great representation for the different skill sets that people come in with. And we're very lucky. I have to say our employer partners are phenomenal. And we evaluate them just like we evaluate candidates. So this is not all the onus is on the candidates that come through our door. We have to have hard conversations with our employer partners as well. We track who do they hire, why do they hire, we look at salaries and all of that stuff to make them better partners in helping us get the right people for them.
Great.
Yeah.
And if someone's interested, say, I like what Nina's saying, I think I would like to try to look at some of the programs you offer, how would they do that?
So we're still a little old-fashioned. Like, we like to pick up the phone and have a conversation.
Sure.
So the easiest way to get in touch with us is give us a call. Our phone number is 401-680-5960 and ask to speak with an intake specialist. We'll do a quick assessment of who you are, what it is that you're looking for, and we'll evaluate and say, okay, are you right now in the moment job ready? We'll get you set up with one of our recruiters who might be representing a job interest of yours. If you're still not sure and you're testing the waters, we might set you up with a job coach. We might put you in the Ready, Set, Work training program to build up your skills, build up your confidence as you go into that next career journey. You can also find us on our website. It's www.skillsforri.com, and find us that way as well. Kind of apply for a job that you might be interested in. And somebody will call you back.
Okay. So taking off your executive hat for a second,
Sure.
going back to just Nina,
Yeah.
I like to end many of my interviews with a tribute to James Lipton with some of the questions that he would ask.
Sure.
So, first one is, what is your favorite word?
What is my favorite word? So can I cheat a little bit? It's two, and it's can do.
Okay?
I'm a yes person, and so I believe in everybody can do.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay?
What sound or noise do you love?
The ocean.
Okay?
I love the water. It is the most calming part when I need to go get away. You'll find me by the ocean.
Okay? If you could do something with zero chance of failure, what would it be?
I would charter a jumbo jet airline plane and take 400 kids for a year of learning around the world as their year of education. High school kids.
Wow. Okay? What career would you least like to do?
Work on a wind turbine, Scott. I learned that through my
There you
VR
go.
experience. That is not happening anytime soon, but I will promote the heck out of the industry so that this way I won't be recruited.
I think I'm with you. 2 steps up the ladder and I'm done.
I'm done.
Yep.
I'm done. Yeah.
Last question. If you could go back to your 12-year-old self and tell yourself something, what would it be?
Build your confidence early and believe in yourself.
Nina, thank you so much for being on the
Thank
wave.
you so much, Scott.
I appreciate it. It was a fantastic conversation.
It was lovely to be here. Again, thank you, and love that you and I got the opportunity to meet and continue the conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.